everyone, welcome to our ear infection workshop. I am excited to be here. It's Dr. Ashley Rath speaking, and what we're going to do today is talk about ear infections, what they are, why they're occurring, and then lastly we're going to give you some action steps that you can start to use today to both increase your overall health and the health of your family, and then also reduce the occurrences of ear infections or even possibly eliminate them. So what we're going to do is just start out by giving you a little bit of background of who I am. So again, my name is Dr. Ashley Rath. I am married to my hot hubby Tyler. He is absolutely fantastic, and I am so glad to be on this journey with him. Originally, I am from central Minnesota, Belgrade, Minnesota. It's about 20 minutes south of Sauk Center if you're from the Minnesota area. But I grew up on an organic dairy farm, and that definitely contributed to where I am today here in the chiropractic field. So I always start off my talks by asking people if they actually know what organic means. So organic to me means a whole crap ton of work. Organic to the majority of the population typically means that it is pesticide-free, herbicide-free, antibiotics or growth hormones aren't used in their meat that they're purchasing at the grocery store. So really it's a great way to eat healthier for the majority of people, and that's what they correlate with organic. Organic to me, it does mean a lot of work because we grew everything organic and we had a herd that was grown organically. Not only were our fields pesticide, herbicide, and insecticide free and chemical free, but our herd was the same way. We couldn't use antibiotics or any sort of growth hormones on our actual herd. So a lot of times we use preventative measures to create a healthy herd instead of treatment. So after I graduated from high school, I went up to NDSU where I did the majority of my undergrad there. From NDSU, I finished off my Bachelor's of Human Biology at Northwestern Health Sciences University in Bloomington, and that's also where I earned my chiropractic doctorate degree. So since then, I've done quite a bit of other training. So I took all the classes for the ICPA, and I have trained hundreds of hours in continuing education for pediatrics and pregnant women, and specifically in overall family practice. So I'm excited to be here, as this is my passion to really increase overall health and overall potential for everyone within the family. So ear infections, what are they? There's so much more going on than just the ear infection itself. So a lot of you may understand what an ear infection is, but sometimes your understanding may not be quite complete. So that's what we're here to give you. We're here to give you some further information to help you and to further help you understand what's really going on in our children. So we're going to start with some statistics today. And I'm just going to read these off because some of you may be listening to it via audio and others may be listening to it with the screen. So here are just a few statistics that I am going to tell you about. So in 2006, over 9 million children got ear infections. 8 million of those got a prescription medication for it. 85% of children will have at least one ear infection before they're 3 years old. This will result in 2.8 billion with a B in medical expenses. And of that 2.8 billion, 1/3 is paid out of pocket. It's the most common reason kids see their pediatrician or go to the ER. And it's the most common reason antibiotics are prescribed. So what is this ear infection? There's quite a few misconceptions. I have 3 of them. So ear infections are normal. Ear infections are not normal. They are very common, but they are not normal. Number 2 misconception is that children have horizontal ear canals and we are to blame that reason. There's partial truth to this statement. They do have more horizontal ear canals, but there's no reason to blame that for an actual ear infection. And the infections are bacterial. Again, this one is partially true, but it is a misconception. So most ear infections are not bacterial. They're actually viral. So less than about 10% of ear infections are bacterial. So, and within those 10%, or actually within the majority of them, antibiotics are prescribed. So there are dangers to antibiotics. So it's estimated that antibiotics help only 1 in 16 kids they're prescribed to. And the reason that number is so low is because, again, most ear infections are viral versus bacterial. Some common side effects of antibiotics are rashes, abdominal pain, diarrhea, nausea, and fever. And anti actually means against, bio means life. So when we have an antibacterial, it's against life. So antibiotics kill, yes, they kill the bad and the ugly. They also kill the good and the great bacteria within our bodies too. Which leads us to what antibiotics can do to an actual child. So allergies are 3 times more common in children given antibiotics before the age of 1. Asthma is 4 times as common in children given antibiotics before the age of 1, and eczema is 6 times as more common. And why is this? We're gonna really dig deep into why these are occurring, because there's absolutely a gut which the antibiotics affect and immune response. So in 2007 there was a study done by the American Academy of Pediatrics, and they wanted to change the guidelines on ear infections to a watchful wait. So what does that mean? So the survey of pediatricians found that they agreed with this, that 85% of them agreed that it's best to actually have watchful waiting. So that means that instead of prescribing an antibiotic to this child, that they're going to just watch and wait and see if that ear infection will resolve in itself. A follow-up survey 3 years later found that only 15% of those pediatricians followed their new guidelines. Why is that? And here's my thing. Antibiotics have saved millions of lives, millions. And MDs are not bad people. They're coming from a very, very loving desire to help children. But the thing is with MDs, they have just one tool for ear infections. They have antibiotics. So if your only tool is a hammer, you start to see every problem as a nail, and that's where I'm coming with these antibiotics. MDs are not bad people, and really antibiotics have saved millions of lives, but it may not be the first form of action that we want to give our children when they're having an ear infection. So really, what is causing these ear infections? So 1 is bad plumbing, 2, there's a neuroimmune dysfunction, and number 3, there's inflammation from diet. So DC means doctor of chiropractic, but really we're a doctor of cause. We're going to figure out what's going on, why it's going on, and really focus on the cause of it so it doesn't start occurring again, instead of just focusing on the symptoms. So let's start with bad plumbing. So if you actually look at the anatomy of the ear, there is a very important muscle called the tensor veli palatini that has a very large impact on ear infections. So if you were to, I'm going to have you do this at home, and it might sound a little weird, but put your hands up like you're making an OK, so your thumb and your pointer finger are together. So right now, your 3 fingers, your middle finger and your ring finger and your pinky finger should be up, and your pointer and your thumb should be making a circle, so you're saying OK. So let's pretend that circle is the actual middle ear. So that's the eustachian tube coming out. So when we actually think of the eustachian tube and why we want that to be fluid, when we think of a middle ear infection, that fluid in there is stagnant. It's not moving. And there's a muscle around that tube called the tensor veli palatini that if if it ends up not properly working, it'll spasm and clench down. So what I want you to do now is take that middle finger and the ring finger and the pinky and clench down. And you see how your circle clenches down. So if there's fluid within that tube or that middle ear, now that fluid gets really stagnant in there and it's not moving because that muscle around the tube is spasming. It's contracting. So you're probably wondering, well, why the heck does that muscle, the tensor veli palatini muscle, spasm? Well, most of the time what we have found within our office is that muscle gets nerve supply from the top part of our spine. And when that nerve supply is not there, or it's dysfunctioning, or it's not functioning at its most optimal rate, what happens is that muscle, that tensor veli palatini muscle, starts to contract. And that malfunctioning muscle creates fluid accumulation because now that inner ear can't drain. So if we can correct that nerve or that muscle from spasming, ultimately the ear is going to drain like it's supposed to. So how the heck do we get misalignments, and how the heck or why is that nerve not functioning properly? Well, most of the time I find that we are finding these misalignments or subluxations from birth. So the reason that nerve going out to the tensor veli palatini muscle is not working is because when it comes out of our neck in our upper cervical spine, it's not sending the correct signal. So the reason it's not sending the correct signal is because it's shifted, it's misaligned, it is a subluxation. So where do these subluxations come from that have an effect on the nerve going out to the muscle around the middle ear? Well, a lot of times it is from the birth process itself. A lot of other symptoms that people find when we do have that subluxation is torticollis, difficulty nursing. The baby or the infant will favor one side. A lot of times children with misalignments or subluxations are colic, they're poor sleepers, and their gut just isn't functioning very, very well. So they have constipation. Almost every single child that has come into our office has these upper cervical subluxations when they have symptoms of an ear infection within our office. So a lot of times when children are coming in with ear infections, we have found that they a lot of times are coming in with a birth trauma of some sort. So this could mean forceps, this could mean Pitocin used, vacuum used, this could also mean a C-section. So 45% of our children are entering the world via C-sections. There is a very high incidence of asthma among C-section babies, and the lungs don't clear. So what we need to do is figure out where this misalignment is within their spine, correct it, so now those nerves coming out of the spine can supply the tensor veli palatini muscle and increase that overall function of the muscle so that ear can drain as needed. So here, what I'm going to show you is actually a live C-section. So if you have a weak stomach, this is your warning. And what this C-section is actually a vacuum with a C-section. And I want you to really focus on the head and neck of this infant's child, or this infant's neck, as he comes out of the womb.
Irritated.
Oh, there you go, fella.
Come on, buddy.
All right.
Ears of a girl. Ears of a girl.
Make you cute for the camera.
Oh, yeah.
Just coming back. There you go.
All right. Look at those big old testicles, though. Bottom of the boy. Bottom.
Ouch, huh?
Of
Yes, that right there was a live C-section, and that happens time and time and time again. This is where the majority of those subluxations or misalignments are coming from, and the reason why our children are having a lot of the symptoms at such an early age. So the lymphatic drainage is really important to note too when we're talking about ear infections and overall health and wellness of that child. So the lymphatic drainage does have a connection with the actual ear infections because they are going to drain down into the lymphatics. We need to make sure that we have proper, healthy lymphatic drainage as well. So your tonsils and your adenoids are a part of the system and are considered your body's first line of defense against bacteria and viruses. So one way to increase that lymphatic drainage would just to massage down what's called your sternocleidomastoid muscle to encourage drainage from that middle ear. So I would describe this massage from the back of your ear, come down all the way to the front part of your clavicle, and just gently massage down those SEMs, starting from the back of the ear and then again moving downward towards the top of the clavicle to encourage that drainage within the middle ear too. So if we are not having drainage, the tensor veli palatini muscle is not working, it's spasming, so it cannot drain, and now the lymphatics aren't draining as well. Well, the next thing after antibiotics don't work is a laryngotomy. So what this is putting two ear tubes within the ear. This is the #1 pediatric surgery. It costs $15,000 to $20,000 each time they do this, and 50% of them have to be redone. So what is happening is they're actually drilling a hole within the ear to force fluid. But after they force that fluid, where is it going to go? And is it okay now to have an incomplete barrier between the outside world and the inner ear to possibly allow more bacteria, more viruses to come within the ear? I don't know. But what I do know is that there's a definite flow within our office that we see when children get ear infections. So in our office, we see children with an ear infection. Most of the time, they've gone in and they've gotten an antibiotic. The antibiotics will work short term, but again, they get ear infections and more antibiotics. Eventually, what will happen is that they'll get tube surgery. So now that they've forced that fluid to flow, a lot of times their tonsils will start to inflame. So they get tonsillitis because the fluid is now forced into that lymphatic drainage. Well, what happens if you get reoccurring inflammation within your tonsils? They take them out. So they have an adenoidectomy. They remove those tonsils. And because that fluid still isn't flowing properly, it has nowhere to go because the lymph nodes aren't picking it up. And now we have asthma. So now 1 in 10 children have asthma. And why do you think that is? Do you think there's a relation? I do. Well, let me go here. I'm having a little bit of difficulty with the Prezi. Whoop, whoop. And here we go. So the problem number 2 would be neuroimmune dysfunction. So what is your spine? It's more than just muscles, it's more than just tendons, and it's more than bones. What it is it's actually the house that protects your nervous system. So when we say neuroimmune, we're talking about the nervous system, meaning neural, immune mean immune system. So we're going to dive deep into what the nervous system is, and then we'll go into that neuroimmune connection. So the spine, or the nervous system itself, is very important because it's protected. The spine is very important because it protects that nervous system. And in the beginning, when you were actually conceived, 2 cells united and started to divide. They divided over 1 trillion times. And just 2.5 weeks after conception, the brain and the spinal cord are developed. Why do you think the brain and the spinal cord are developed first? Well, because they're the master system. So if we look at this chart here, you can see the brain up top, the spinal cord comes down, and then all of the other organ systems branch off from the nervous system. from the spinal cord. So you can see here that the heart has a nerve supply, the lungs do, the stomach, the liver, the pancreas, the small and large intestine. Your eyes have a nerve connection, your ears, your nose, your reproductive organs, your kidneys. Everything is actually rooted from the brain and the spinal cord. So our bodies are very smart by creating our brain and our spinal cord first and branching out. A lot of times when I ask people what their most important organ is their heart. And they're right. Their heart is you need your heart to be alive. But if you don't actually have that nerve supply to the heart, you could have the healthiest heart in the world, but it's not going to pump without that nerve supply. And so, the job of your nervous system is really to help you perceive the environment and coordinate your whole body and all cells. So think of it as like your air traffic controller. Like an air traffic controller controls all the planes in the air from takeoff to landing to actually flying in the air. This does the same thing but with your body. It's controlling and coordinating all the functions of your body. So you breathing right now, you blinking your eyes, your heart beating, these are all functions of the nervous system. And within that nervous system, we have two modes of operation. We have what's called the gas pedal or the sympathetic. So this is our body's fight or flight response. This is our body's ability to adapt to stress. It's our stress response. So for example, if we're driving down the road and a deer pops out in front of us, that will ignite our gas pedal, or our sympathetic mode. Our heart will start pounding really fast. Our palms will get sweaty. We maybe will start sweating. Our muscles tense up. That's that stress response. There's cortisol coming through shooting out through your adrenal glands, and really it's there to protect you. What happens is when we have that subluxation, misalignment in the upper neck, which most of the time comes from birth, what happens is it ignites this gas pedal or sympathetic mode. And when we get stuck in gas pedal mode, that's where symptoms come from. Our body is unable to adapt. So we'll get ear infections, seizures, asthma, muscle spasms, ADHD, reflux, cold, flus, constipation, colic, anxiety, autism, allergies, headaches. All of these symptoms is a result of our body being stuck in a stressful state, so that sympathetic mode, and unable to adapt. Well, the second part of that mode of operation is the brake pedal or the parasympathetic system. So this is where our body is able to heal, restore. This is where growth takes place. This is where immune function is, our healthy digestion. This is where we're able to rest and relax. So we need both of these systems in a healthy body, but we need a balance between the two. If we're constantly under stress because we have misalignments and subluxations and a stressful lifestyle, we're going to have that stress response in our body when it comes, in this case, ear infections or asthma or allergies or sore throats or ADHD or sensory processing disorders. But what happens is when we remove that subluxation, that misalignment in the spine, now we're not putting stress on our spine, so our body can jump into that parasympathetic mode where we can heal, relax, restore, and develop. So you're probably wondering, well, besides birth trauma, how else do we get these misalignments or subluxations within our spine? We call them the 3 T's. So they're toxins, traumas, and thoughts. So physical stressors, this is the birth process we've been talking about. So vacuums, C-sections, very, very fast births, forceps, things of that nature that can cause a physical stress on our infants or children's spine. And this is also for adults too. And then the other 2 T's are toxins and traumas. So these are chemical stressors. So chemical stressors would be, processed food, sugar. This could be vaccinations, medications, antibiotics. This could also be, fumes that we could inhale or chemicals that we can inhale or toxic things we're putting on our body, so lotions and soaps. And then the thoughts would be mental emotional stressors. So for adults, this would be more so like finances or work or relationships. This could also be divorce or worrying. And so really all 3 of these 3 T's put us into that fight or flight mode, that gas pedal mode, that sympathetic mode, and then we get stuck there and we're unable to heal and adapt to the stressors within our life. The thing is with these two systems is that only one is running at the same time. You can't be in growth, brake pedal, parasympathetic, and protection, fight or flight mode, or sympathetic, at the same time. So you can't be in growth and protection at the same time. And Dr. Bruce Lipton, very intelligent man, said that. The problem number 3 that I see with ear infections is inflammation from the diet. So poor diets and toxins from the environment create inflammation within the body. This leads to mucus production and buildup. So mucus is one of your body's ways of externalizing something harmful. So when you get sick, you're sneezing and you're coughing and you have a runny nose. Well, this mucus production is a very healthy response. It's actually a drainage system that your body has to get rid of those toxins within your body. But it can easily be overwhelmed. So when we have a poor diet and toxins, what happens is that our mucus production goes up within our body, and now that fluid within the inner ear starts to get more stagnant because it's thicker. The viscosity of it is heavier, and so it's not going to flow as easy. So one way that we can decrease the inflammation within our body is decreasing the toxins we put in. So limiting your body's exposure to irritants will ultimately decrease the need for your bodies to produce mucus. So these things will definitely help decrease mucus if we eliminate them from our diet. So dairy is number 1, sugar, grains, processed food, and in general smoking. So will all decrease the inflammation and ultimately mucus within our bodies. So really, we need to figure out where these misalignments are within our spine when you come into our office. And here's one way that we do it. We have very high-tech scans that we use within our office to show us exactly where your nervous system is under stress. So it shows us how the nervous system is functioning and where that interference is and its severity.
I'm Dr. David Fletcher, Chairman and Chief Clinical Officer of the Chiropractic Leadership Alliance. Your doctor has invested in the world's leading chiropractic technology designed to detect where stress and tension building up in your spinal cord could be affecting your entire health. By understanding where you are holding on to tension and by measuring how deeply that tension is affecting the spine, the muscles, and indeed the nerves that connect through it, gives the chiropractor a leading edge in understanding how he or she can begin a care plan that will be designed to manage your health and your future wellness. There are 3 different sensors that the chiropractor will use to determine where that stress and tension is building up. One of those, which is known as surface electromyography, is designed to understand how efficient the muscles are working within your spinal cord. A second technology, known as a rolling thermal device, is a specifically designed piece of equipment which understands exactly which type of temperatures are being managed along your entire spine. Managing temperature is a very complex neurological event, and it's important to understand if stress is affecting that part of your control. The third technology score, which is known as heart rate variability, gives the doctor a complete understanding of how your heart rate and rhythm is being affected by the stress that you have come to live with in your life. This incredibly important number allows us to understand how much reserve your body has for managing stress, and importantly, how well you can adapt to the day-to-day stresses that are inevitable in each of our lives. The core score represents an advancement in the ability of a chiropractic team to manage your care. By using the core score, your doctor will have an understanding as to how stress has been affecting your health, and more importantly, a method of tracking your progress while under chiropractic care.
This is the technology we use in our office to best serve our patients. I love this technology, and it's safe and effective for all ages. We do them on infants, we do them on pregnant women. It's not putting anything into their bodies, but ultimately giving us a tool to better serve you, to figure out where those misalignments, subluxations are in your spine. So now we know exactly where we need to help and adjust that area of your spine so the nerves coming out can better function. And in this case, especially, we're looking at the upper cervical neck, because those are the nerves that go out to that tensor veli palatini muscle and supply that muscle around that tube to help the drainage of the ear. So right here, how do we remove the subluxations? We remove them by safe, gentle, and effective chiropractic adjustments. So you can see here are some pictures that of kiddos we've seen in our office that have seen tremendous results. And we're going to talk about a few more statistics on chiro kids versus MD kids. So there's a survey of 200 chiropractors and 200 medical doctors. And only 20% of the medical doctors' kids ever had an ear infection. And 69% of the chiro kids only 20% of the medical doctor kids never had an ear infection, where 69% of the chiro kids never had an ear infection. So a more recent study was done on 332 children aged 4 weeks to 5 years old who were suffering from recurrent ear infections that went under chiropractic care. 90% of them had no reoccurrence of ear infections for at least 6 months following their care. So pretty cool. So here's the statistics of that study that showed that the DC kids in all of these different categories, so tonsillitis, otitis media, antibiotic use, and other medications, had a much less occurrence when they were under chiropractic care. So tonsillitis, only 26% of DC's DC's children got tonsillitis, and 43% got them of medical doctors. For middle ear infections, otitis media, 80% of medical doctors' children had ear infections, and only 31% of doctor of chiropractic children. And then antibiotic use was at 90% for medical doctors, and only 50% for children who have been under chiropractic care. Pretty cool statistics that we find. So I'm going to show you a few success stories that we've seen within our office and let you see for yourself. So this is Grace. She has had when she came to our office, she had multiple rounds of antibiotics and ear infections, recurring ear infection after ear infection after ear infection, and the doctors recommended ear tubes. Her mother sought our care out, and since starting care, she hasn't had a single ear infection. Her parents are ecstatic. They have less trips to the hospital, less trips to the ER, and what her number one thing is that everybody is sleeping so much better. And more importantly, she didn't have to have ear tubes put into her ears, which is fantastic. Grayson here was 9 months old when he came in. He had a more complex history. He had a history of ear infections, frequent colds. He had constant congestion. I mean, this kiddo, his nose was always running. He always had crusties on his eyes. He was very irritable. He was not sleeping, and he was starting to have developmental days and not crawling very well at all. He had received many rounds of antibiotics. Pitocin was used during birth. Grayson here, since starting chiropractic care, hasn't had a single ear infection. He hasn't taken an antibiotic for ear infections since, and parents report he is overall much healthier and happier. So I took a screenshot here of his first progress evaluation, and he's had more since then. But his very first progress eval, this is what his mom wrote. So he's not as congested, he's coughing less and sleeping better. He's more aware, and stomach seems to be better. He has more regular stool schedule. He's not as fussy and talking more. This is just his first progress eval. He's had two. He has had two since I took this picture, and now his mom says he's a happy baby. truly phenomenal things if we just remove that nerve interference. So where do we go from here? So you're probably wondering, could this be the missing link of why my children are getting ear infection after ear infection after ear infection? Is this why we have to make those multiple trips to the ER or to the hospital? Is this maybe the reason why I have headaches, or the reason why my other children aren't sleeping well, or possibly even the reason why one of my other children is having sensory issues? I don't know. But what I do know is that we can get your child checked and scanned so we know exactly if and where that stress is, and we'll know exactly how to correct that. Other things you can do right now is reduce or remove dairy and sugar. Again, that's going to reduce that mucus and inflammation within their body. We need to add supplements to boost their immune function. When children are having those antibiotics after antibiotics, what's happening is that their gut function decreases. It's not working properly, and because 80% of our gut is our immunity, 80% of our immunity is within our gut, we need to add supplements to boost that immune function so we don't have that reoccurring ear infection. And number 4, learn how a fever and immune systems really do work. It's not the time or place to talk about them right now, but really research what a fever does and how the immune systems really work. And number 5, never look back. When we get rid of interferences within the nervous system, we increase the potential that that child has within them. And all children have an amazing potential within them, and I'm here to help you out with that. So if you have any further questions, please contact us. I'll give you information after this to reach out to us if you have any further questions. Thank you again for your time. I very much appreciate you joining me here today, and I look forward to hearing you in our next workshop. Again, this is Dr. Ashley, and I will see you next time.